Welcome back. It is Rock the Mic weekend on ESPN 97.5's Houston Game Day. We're joined by our final finalist. Is it the best for last? It's Mark Kratovil. Good morning.
Good morning, fellas. I hear you like sports.
Take it or leave them around here.
Yeah, sometimes it gets a little old, to be honest.
We're getting
especially if you're watching Astros baseball.
We're getting near the part of the show where we're a little less sportsy, but we're not there yet. We've been talking NFL most of the show. Off the top of your head, Mark, what's your Super Bowl matchup right now?
Oh, well, I would probably have to go with the Pack and possibly the Broncos. And guys, I hate to be the bearer of bad news here for you. I don't think the Texans are going to make it.
I'm not a Texans fan, and I'm breaking my heart.
Okay, well, for the good people out there in the city of Houston who might be hearing me right now, it's not going to happen, folks. And I am a Texans
He's coming
fan.
hard and strong with this prediction.
What is it about Green Bay, though? Because my thing with them is Aaron Rodgers was sacked 50, 60-something times last year. They didn't improve the O-line, and they lose Balaga. How is Aaron Rodgers going to make it through a 16-game season this year?
Well, you're going to have to depend on just a quick release from him, just getting the ball out of there in a quick three-step drop as soon as possible.
And get rid of it.
Yeah, and he is the guy that you would want if that's your situation.
So completion percentage be damned. If I just throw it so I don't get sacked.
Exactly, and this is a new era in the NFL, right? The run doesn't matter as much because you can run things out of the backfield, short little passes, slants that essentially serve the same purpose as a run. So a lot of people are making a big deal about who is in the Green Bay backfield that's any good. My answer to that is it doesn't matter. You can just throw it to a receiver, throw it to any old schlub out of the running back position there, and have them run it up the field for 3 or 4 yards. That's just as good as a run.
I want to change the subject a little bit here on an article I just pulled up. DJ Swearinger, we know what happened last night with him and Dustin Keller. A news story popping up with a quote from DJ Swearinger saying that the new rules in the NFL where you can't hit high causes injury, where he had to go low, and there's been a lot of speculation about this, about guys having to hit low, possibly putting a shoulder into a kneecap. He says, quote, I was making a hit playing football. In this league, you've got to hit, or you've got to go low. End
He's
quote.
spot on.
I believe this is one of the first instances we've seen of this since the rules changed, and I think we've seen injuries, but this is one of the biggest ones to a named player that we've seen.
The only extreme about that I can see is I understand wanting to not go like above the chest. You still got a lot of room between the chest and the kneecap, so I don't entirely buy that. I don't think that rule led to that injury last night. However, more often than not, I think we see referees throwing the flag because, I better get this 15-yard penalty, where it's going to be assessed during the week. Maybe they don't get fined. I'd rather them wait, assess it during the week, than just throw the flag because they think maybe they saw something.
Well, guys, this opens up the discussion into a much larger issue. First, let me say, I think you're going to see a lot more things like this happening where somebody comes out afterwards and says, the new rules caused me to tear this guy's ACL, and it was totally incidental, and I apologize. But the bigger issue here is something that some media outlets, including ESPN, have been speculating about, and that's, will we still have football in 10, 20, 30, 40 years down the road here because of the concussion issue? Is there going to be some sort of large-scale class action lawsuit by former players who have suffered a lot of adverse health consequences down the line from our lack of knowledge about concussions that come back and have some sort of big tobacco type settlement with the NFL or with the NCAA that just completely puts them out of business?
Well, I have a not-so-popular theory that for preseason, one day we're going to see flags in the NFL. So we'll play a little flag football, a little two-hand touch. There's just so many injuries that happen in the preseason. They're not only to just second and third stringers, but to name players. We see it time and time again where guys miss an entire season based off a preseason game. So I think eventually you may see some precautions there. As for what we see on the field, as long as Goodell is in charge, this player safety thing is going to keep getting stricter and stricter.
Well, I think way too much gets put on Goodell. I mean, you got to remember something about that position. He's the puppet of the owners. It's just like every sport. Bud Selig, the same thing. These guys don't have any power outside of what the owners will allow them to do. So essentially, when you look at Goodell, you're looking at the mouthpiece of the 30-something owners in the NFL. Everyone likes to dump that on him. I think this is about the owners protecting investments and not losing a guy. I mean, Dustin Keller's a different deal because he's on a one-year contract. But if I invest, $80 million in Larry Fitzgerald, I don't want anybody putting a helmet on his helmet and knocking him out.
This is something that I think Drew Brees has done a great job of bringing to the forefront Jonathan Vilman, their lawsuits against the NFL and Roger Goodell. Roger Goodell is not on the side of the players. His job is to make money for the owners and for those teams.
He works for the owners. He's never made any bones about that.
Absolutely. And so I don't know if we can really trust him fully with the issue of player safety. He'll do the minimum amount to avoid lawsuits and the minimum amount possible to prevent loss of revenue for the owners in the NFL and player safety be damned.
There's a couple different hits that we see on these hits that are fined, flagged, etc., where they come in, they hit helmet to helmet, they hit high, but do they really have the intention to do so? You have to, I think, when you analyze these hits, you have to put yourself in that position. I like guys that have played the safety position, the corner position, that have put hits on receivers like this at a full speed angle. How difficult is it to try and hit precisely where you're supposed to? And there are times where I don't think it's intentional. There's two guys that are going in, they both lower themselves, and there's going to be times where helmets clash. I think that they've gotten a little too strict on flagging these types of plays.
I think it's the refs trying to be proactive in getting them. I mean, and again, just from watching as much Ravens football as there was on TV last year, you had Ed Reed, and then you had the other guy, Glover, former Texan.
Glover Quinn.
Glover Quinn. Last year, one of them or both of them was getting called for a 15-yard penalty every single week. How many times when you break it down in slow motion, if you're a receiver and you're catching a ball and you see a guy coming at you, what are you going to do? You're going to ball up to take that impact. How many times do we see a helmet-to-helmet hit, but only because that wide receiver, that tight end, or that running back lowered himself into that position? And that's what I'm saying. They're making the calls because they're guessing.
Yeah.
And other than the NBA, who guesses more than NFL referees?
You know, that's a great point. And on the topic of injuries happening because of this, one of the things that there's a video making the rounds online right now. Shout out to all my Texas Tech Red Raiders out there. The new coach Cliff Kingsbury saying you got to play without thinking. And that's exactly right, because back in my glory days of high school football, our coaches always said, you get hurt when you don't go 100%.
Yeah.
And the consequences of what is happening with refs flagging, thinking about flagging, and fines coming down the road is you get defensive backs, you get linebackers who, in that split second before they make impact, are thinking, okay, go high or go low, and that's when people get hurt. Same with the receivers. Do I want to ball up and avoid getting hurt? They think about it too much, and that's where the injuries really occur in this.
Well, I would say in any sport, if you think too much, that's where you're going to find a lot of problems. If you're in baseball, if you're overthinking the pitcher, if it's a 1-2 count, more times than not, you're going to get that strikeout fastball where he's going to throw it high, but when you start thinking of the slider on the outside corner, the curve that's going to be in the dirt, that's when you get one right down the middle and you miss it.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's the same thing in football where you're thinking about doing that precise hit, and while you're thinking, he puts a cut on you and he's gone for 35 yards.
And I can tell you from watching my own kids, my 13 and my 10-year-old both play tackle. When you're first starting and you don't know anything about tackle football, they're teaching you formations or teaching you form tackling. After the first 2 weeks, they're like, okay, you've learned this for 2 weeks. Now we just want you to go out there and react. Don't think your way through it. Now all of a sudden, 20 years later, you're in the NFL. You got to think more.
Do you like those form tackling videos? You ever seen those instructional videos for your kids?
Tommy Mansky baseball videos or throwing into a trash can for 5 minutes.
You don't see form tackling in the NFL anymore. It's all guys who want to get on the ESPN top 10 plays and are trying to blow somebody up. And this is a big issue where guys are not wrapping up and causing tackles to happen immediately. They want to blow it up, cause the turnover, get on the highlight reel.
Well, wasn't DJ Swearinger kind of a victim of that a week before last when they allowed that long touchdown? And I guess he was trying to jump the route or make the crushing hit. He ends up missing, and you have a 61-yard touchdown.
That's not how they teach you to tackle. They
No.
say wrap up. They're not telling you to try to blow people up, especially when you first start. And these days, with the restrictions that they've got on training camp workouts in terms of putting people in pads, it's becoming a lost art for form tackling. They don't practice it at the NFL level anymore.
I believe when you get to this level, the fundamentals just completely go out the door. We see it again in all sports. You just try to make plays out there. Sometimes you don't think, you react, you try to make a play.
The game is so fast. I mean, you don't have time to really think about it anymore. You just kind of got to react, and that's maybe where the fundamentals go out the window.
We really learned how much faster pace it is in any other level of football when we had the replacement officials in the league last year. They were behind every single play, it seemed like. You really saw at that point how much quicker this game is.
Well, I can tell you from firsthand experience, if you've ever tried to ref an intramural game or a high school football
Little League
game,
baseball.
Little League, and any pick your sport, you are going to constantly be amazed, no matter how low the skill level, at how fast it goes. And when you get it up to the level of the professional athletes, you can't tell me that those refs always are able to follow along.
That's why you always sell the call right there. Even if you didn't see it, you have no idea what the call was, you say you were there, and you're 100% sure.
Mark Kratovil, your Houston game day audition is coming to a close. Your thoughts?
Are we going to talk some NHL realignment?
Next week.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Well, call me in for that. I'm happy.
MISL adding 20 more teams, crap like that.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for having me, guys. This was a blast.
You big hockey dude?
A little bit. I'm a Dallas Stars fan.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, they're getting better.
Onward and upward. Well, that concludes the audition segment of this show. When we come back, it'll be the walk-off. It's Mike and Andy on Houston Game Day, ESPN 97.5.